Hello, everyone. I'm Carlos Carnicero Urabayen. Welcome to another Future is Blue video talk, the space promoted by Funcas Europe and produced by Agenda Pública. So today, I'm joined by Juan Pablo Riesgo, and Juan Pablo is a partner at Ernst Young, and he's a former Secretary of State of Employment. And I'm also joined by Nick Malkoutzis, who's a familiar face for you probably by now because he's a regular contributor to Future is Blue. And Nick is the founder and editor of MacroPolis. So welcome both. And we're here to talk about how to make the most out of the, I'm gonna call them EU Corona funds, like the mechanism, the budget mechanism, money to fight a terrible crisis. So of course, it's not only about having the money, but it's about spending the money in the best way possible. So Juan Pablo, let's start with you. And I want to ask you, your perspective, you're based in Madrid. I want to ask you about the Spanish perspective, how crucial it is to spend this up to 140 billion funds, if I'm not mistaken, how to spend those funds in a smart way.
Well, thanks for inviting me to be with you today. It is a pleasure for me to participate in the Future Blue and to stay with you. It is for sure a crucial issue for the Spanish economy. I mean, the Spanish economy has been deeply has suffered deeply this crisis, and we need a specific push in order to go on. This is why first, I think member states and particularly Spain must present robust recovery and resilience plans as soon as possible, including properly designed eligible investments and reforms according to the country-specific recommendations received by each country and specifically by Spain within the European semester process. But this is not only an issue of governments. I think this is an issue of civil society, of social partners, of parliaments, of enterprises, of academia. They all must engage, I think, with public institutions and intermediate bodies for the EU funds in order to design and manage eligible projects. Taking full advantage of next generation EU funds is a collective responsibility. We are all concerned in that purpose, and we cannot miss this opportunity.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. Very interesting. Nick, I want to ask you about what Juan Pablo said. This is not about a government isolated, having a budget and deciding what to do about it. This is about bringing the country together. Academia, civil society, businesses. What's your perspective from Greece? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously we're talking about a once in a lifetime situation, hopefully in terms of the health point of view, maybe not in the end in terms of our economies, the way that public finances in the EU are run. Maybe this is a turning point, we'll see. But for the time being, it seems like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And, you know, speaking to a high-ranking EU official just a few days ago, the point he was making to me is that, you know, it's all about quality here, not necessarily quantity. You know, make the investments that will really make a difference, because we may not have an opportunity like this again. And this is something that is certainly being felt in Greece. You know, the Greek economy is due to contract by about 9% this year. The expectation is that if everything goes well, and I think probably the way that the coronavirus situation is developing, it's very difficult for us to use that phrase, if everything goes well, anymore. But if everything goes according to plan, the Greek economy will grow by 6% next year. So you already have lost momentum. You have growth that's being lost. Greece is in line to receive about 30 billion euros from the recovery fund. About 18 billion euros of that are grants. Now, the Bank of Greece, the central bank here in Greece, the governor, Yannis Stournaras, gave a speech this week and said that they estimate that the recovery funds could add as much as 1.9% per annum to the Greek GDP, which is a big boost to the Greek economy, which of course has suffered even before the coronavirus was around. Now, what the government has tried to do is that it's tried to have this all-encompassing approach that you mentioned. So they got together a team of academics led by the Nobel Prize winner, Sir Christopher Pissarridis, to put together a proposal for reforms. And they're using that proposal, this white paper, if you like, to then build the proposals that the Greek government will send in a few days, a couple of weeks or so, to the European Commission for projects that can be financed through the EU recovery funds. The big issue here is to secure transformational projects. It can't be business as usual. This isn't about building roads or bridges. It has to be about much more than that. And for that, you need everyone to buy in, everyone to support the idea.
Thanks, Nick. In fact, you're right. We've thought in the past about EU funds of building roads and bridges, which are not a bad thing, but all the discussion about Next Generation EU was about digitalization, sustainability, and investments that can make a difference for the future. So Juan Pablo, what kind of investments can you think of so that they suit this conversation?
Well, I think it has been actually addressed by the Commission recently and since the beginning of the creation of the fund. But as you know, last week they published the Annual Sustainable Growth Strategy 2021, which sets clearly which are the main priorities for investment in general and in particular for the use of these funds. These investments are such as the development and use of renewable energy, improving the energy and resource efficiency of public and private buildings, promoting future-proof clean technologies to accelerate the use of sustainable, accessible, and smart transport, rollout of rapid broadband services to all regions and households, including fiber and 5G networks, the digitalization of public administration and services, increasing European industrial data cloud capacities and ability to develop the most powerful cutting-edge and sustainable processors. And finally, and for me it is clear, it is one of the main topics, investment in reskilling and upskilling. From my point of view, when Juncker plan was launched, it was highly focused on capital investment, but in physical capital investment. I think this is the opportunity to invest in human capital. I think Europe must invest highly in human capital also, and this Next Generation EU is an opportunity to do so.
Nick, maybe because this whole program is not only about investments, but there's also like a mild conditionality in terms of the countries also doing reforms in their own administrations, in the whole state and so on. Is there a debate in this sense in Greece?
Well, as you know, Carlos, conditionality is a bit of a dirty word in Greece, given the three previous programs. And of course, the government is stressing we're not talking about another bailout program. It's a very different process. And at the same time, we also should realize that Greece is under a kind of conditionality still in the so-called enhanced surveillance period after the completion of the third program. And in fact, just on Wednesday, the European Commission published the 7th post-program report. So that process is still going on. And that's become very much part of the fabric, here in Greece, the whole idea of this exchange, this constant exchange with the European lenders over what kind of reforms Greece should be doing, whether it's on time, whether it's late, whether it's public finances in order, and so on. So on one level, there is a concern to ensure that the message is clear to the public that we're not talking about any program like or bailout like conditions. On the other, I think that the public has very much become accustomed to the idea that there is this constant process of some kind of monitoring going on, although now it's much lighter than it was under the 3 programs. So I don't think there's too much of an issue there.
Thank you, Nick. I wanted to ask Juan Pablo about something that it's very important because in the case of Spain, there were funds in the past that were not spent because there was not a capacity to manage them. Maybe there were not good enough projects that were presented. Maybe there was no time to present. I don't know what, I will not go into details, but in any case, there were funds that were ready to be used and they were not used. So obviously, there's a fair risk now that we can have the same situation. So Juan Pablo, how can we prevent that from happening again?
Well, this is, Carlos, a tricky issue for sure, and it is quite interesting. I was in charge of the Spanish unit to manage the European Social Fund, and I know how difficult it is to manage these funds. And I must say that one of my most difficult challenges when I was in charge, and I was 7 years working in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security in Spain, was to take full advantage and all the opportunity to use these funds. So this is really difficult, and this is why I asked for a national effort in order to create projects and to manage them. But the administration has the role for sure. I mean, they have the obligation to ensure an administrative capacity sufficient to manage all these funds. And for this purpose, I would suggest to define clear responsibilities in the Spanish administration regarding the management of these funds. I would suggest to appoint a lead ministry or authority in order to take the responsibility for the recovery and resilience plan and to be responsible for the implementation of the recovery and resilience plans, to ensure coordination with other relevant ministries or authorities at national level, to monitor the progress on milestone and targets, and also to oversight and implementing the control and audit measures. And for sure, engage, as I said previously, with this civil society, with academia, with parliament, with all people that can have the opportunity to know what the Spanish economy needs to make this transformation real. It's plenty of ideas all around there, and the administration has the opportunity and I think the obligation to receive all these ideas, to convert them into eligible projects and to make them a reality. And for that purpose also, I mean, in order not to waste or to take full advantage of this amount of money, the Spanish government also has to push for reforms. We all know that the regulation, which is still draft, but the regulation for the Next Generation EU or the Recovery and Resilience Facility asks governments to push for reforms according to the European semester, to the country-specific recommendations, and this is something that I think it's not clearly known by the public. Spain will receive as much money as Spain will invest in reforms. So it is quite important to create and to present eligible projects, but it is as important than that to present robust reforms that can join this investment and that can make the Spanish economy receive all this amount of money. This is what I think the Spanish administration should do to take the most advantage of these funds. And just I think it is interesting to know and to remember that we have only absorbed 35% of the funds related to the previous programmation period of budget, the European budget, and now we will receive more than 3 times this amount. So this is why I think this is a special moment for the Spanish society. We have to work all together to be able to send to the European Commission robust recovery and resilience plans presenting robust reforms and eligible projects in order to receive all this amount of money that could make our next generation a better life.
So we heard correctly, it's 35% of the funds used in the past, and now we should be receiving up to 3 times more funds.
Exactly.
So the challenge is huge. The challenge and the opportunity is huge.
This is, and we have 2 years more to invest the previous funds from the period 13-20. We have 2 more years to spend all this money, but those are the same years that the Commission wants to front load 70% of Next Generation EU. So during the next 2 years, we have a high responsibility to be able to invest the rest of the amount of money that we have from the previous period, which is 65% of the amount, and to invest 70% of Next Generation EU for the next period. So this is a real, I think, a real important moment for the Spanish economy, and this is why I think we are all concerned, and we should all engage together to work to make this a reality.
No, what's at stake is huge. Is the economy itself, which is doing so badly, and the credibility vis-a-vis some northern countries that were kind of skeptic, to say the least, about how the funds are spent, and if they are actually spent. Nick, a final word. I'm going to close this, but maybe you want to add something?
Well, when you're asking the question, you could have been talking about Greece, and interestingly, you know, Juan Pablo's response, I think, applies to a very large extent to Greece. The problem has been very low absorption of EU funds in the past, and now the package is here. We've been shouting and pushing for it, and now we've got to show that we can absorb it, and B, we can use it on really transformative projects. Because as you correctly mentioned, if we fail in this, then, you know, those arguments for greater solidarity,
Yes.
A different fiscal approach within the Eurozone, and so on and so forth, really go out the window. They're really weakened. So it's a really key moment now that we're facing. And, you know, the approach from the Greek government has been the same. I mentioned earlier, they got this committee of wise men together. They've now given the task to a 5-man task force within the finance ministry to put together the proposals, and you know, the emphasis and what they're talking about is very much, it's front loaded. There's a lot of money coming in. We need to find worthy projects to back and secure this money and not waste it.
All right. Thank you both. I think this was very interesting, and I think this is such a topic that we're going to follow it so closely in the next weeks, months, and maybe even years. So I want to thank you both for joining, Nick Malkoutzis and Juan Pablo Riesgo. Let's stay in touch and have a nice day.
Thank you very much indeed.